Today we're going to talk about inflation, as it is one of the topics I'm asked about the most in conversations with our clients. I have 3 points that I want to cover today. Why is inflation here? How long will it last? And why is it bad? First, why is inflation here? I do not believe that inflation is caused by rising wages, rapid economic growth, or government deficit spending. Inflation comes from printing too much money. It comes from having too much money supply, chasing too few goods. With that as a backdrop, it's easy to understand why we're seeing so much inflation in our current economy. COVID shutdowns caused many supply chain interruptions across all industries. In almost all goods, from refrigerators to cars, and almost all commodities, from lumber to oil, we're seeing a shortage in supply, causing a surge in inflationary pressure. And while I expect that the supply chain will catch up over the next few months, we've seen that generous unemployment benefits have made it hard for companies to find enough employees to produce at a high enough level to catch up so far. This has exaggerated the short-term inflation that we've seen, where the consumer price index has gone from last year to this year has increased by over 5%, which is a historically high number. However, instead of getting better, inflation's getting worse. Over the last 3 months, the CPI is up over 8%, even though production has increased. But the real reason we're seeing such high inflation currently is because inflation is a monetary phenomenon. Over the past 16 months, going back to February of 2020, the Federal Reserve has increased the M2 measure of money by 30%. Let me say that again. They've increased the M2 measure of money by 30%. This will hurt all consumers' purchasing power, as the value of their dollar will be worth less compared to goods and services. Let me give you an example of the easiest way that I know how to explain inflation. Let's say we have 10 apples and $10. Each apple would cost $1. If you increase the money supply and you now have 30% more, so instead of $10, you have $13, each apple will now cost $1.30. If you do this at the exact same time you're having a supply shortage, and you now only have 5 apples, each apple will cost $2.60. Which leads me to my second point. How long will this last? Continuing with the example of the apples, once supply does eventually catch back up, we would expect prices to come back down. But the reason that I believe inflation is not just a temporary crisis is that even if we get back to 10 apples being produced, we've still increased the money supply by 30%. So now those 10 apples will cost $1.30 compared to $1 from just 16 months ago. This is a permanent increase in inflation, and it comes from printing too much money. Looking at this chart, you can see that it isn't just the same old story. Inflation worries have been around a long time, and for years, people have talked about it and worried about it, but it's never had a huge significant impact, probably in the last 20 years. Why is inflation so bad? This is my third point. The starting point for most retirement planning is looking at your projected budget in retirement to determine if the money you have saved will be enough to last your projected life expectancy. When your purchasing power loses value in future years, it means you have 2 options. You either work a lot longer or save a lot more. We usually use a 2.5% cost of living increase when we're running a retirement analysis. But even a 1% change in that number can have a devastating effect on someone's retirement planning. There are also ancillary repercussions, like the shortage of goods that people will hoard if they think that the prices are going to go up significantly, compounding the shortage problem. Usually the response to a high inflationary environment is that the Fed will raise interest rates, which could be bad for borrowers and especially bad for current bond owners. So inflation is here, and while it may get better than what we're seeing right now, I don't expect it to go away anytime soon.